Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Brighton podcast. My name is Blessings. Today, I'm joined by Rich.
Hello, guys.
And also joined by Jamie.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be back and talking about my favourite thing, transfers.
Love it. Yes, as Jamie said, today we're going to be talking about the transfer window, how Brighton have done. We're going to dive into our incomings, some of the departures, and also just an overview of how well we think we've done in the window. To start off, boys, I was thinking, we've signed quite a few players, and I don't know about you guys, but I always get a bit worried about signing too many players and how they're going to gel. So, Rich, what do you think? Is it a good thing that we've brought in such talented players, or do you think we'll struggle maybe gelling?
Well, the biggest irony, right, is that De Zerbi kind of left the club because he wasn't happy that Tony Bloom didn't spend any money, and yet we equal our record by getting Minte for 30 million. We buy all kinds of players. We brought in a whole host, the likes of Osmond and Kozia Dewberry, and we've got more potentially to come. And Bloom's kind of gone, you're saying I'm not going to buy anyone. I'm buying all these players. As far as in answer to your question, I don't think a lot are going to be straight into the team at the beginning of the season. I think it's only going to be Weaver and Minte who are definitely going to go in from the start, and then the others will slowly work their way in. So I don't think it's a bad thing right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the fact that we've got so many players that we've brought in, they're all of a young age group as well. So it's promising for the future, and it's getting them ready to gel potentially in the future if they are playing together in training and in potential matches and here and there. It gets them ready for that future next step. So when you talk about the likes of, I'm going to butcher his name, Yakuye in centre mid, I think he's a promising talent. He came with a big reputation from Gothenburg, but he's still young, so he's going to need that time to kind of gel into the team, and also then potentially in a couple of years, then be a permanent fixture in the Brighton team.
Yeah, and we've spoken a bit about Minter as well, but I just want to dive into sort of how that deal sort of happened, because 35 million looks like a steal for us. And what are your thoughts on Minter, Rich?
Oh, he looks unreal. I think I mentioned in the last podcast, he reminds me a bit of Sadio Mane in the way that he closes down defenders. He is always hustling, but he's so direct and he's so quick and he's not afraid to come in and turn onto his left foot. Of course, Mane played on the left, went onto his right foot. Minte's obviously playing on the right-hand side. And I think we spoke in the last podcast as well, which you should definitely go listen to on a Spotify or Apple podcast, wherever you get your podcast. It was a great podcast.
Love it.
But we spoke about Adingra and how Adingra was so good at the end of the last season. Minte has impressed so much in these pre-season friendlies that he's got to start away at Everton. He set up a goal and scored one in the friendly against Villarreal, and he deserved his goal. He is going to cause left backs all kinds of nightmares this season.
Yeah. Also, just on the amazing preseason he's had, that's 5 goals in his last 5. If you include Gambia playing the Seychelles, I know it's not a great standard, and he should probably be terrorising
International football.
International football.
We've got an international footballer in our squad now. I mean, that is what more could you ask for? But yeah, I think that's 5 goals in the last 5, and it is a promising start to his career. He's fit in like a hand in a glove, or a fish to water, whatever the saying might be. He has done absolutely incredible. I think, to me, his pace stands out, doesn't it?
And was he 19?
20, I think.
20, yeah.
19, 20.
So he must have just been celebrating his birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah. He is rapid, and that is the thing that gets me most excited. Is defenders hate defending against pace. Unless you're Kyle Walker, then you are literally a pace merchant, and that's all you live for. But that is the directness of him, dribbling ability, just close control, keeps it close to him. I mean, that is the thing that makes me most excited about watching him and watching what he can do in the upcoming season.
But he's also not afraid to defend. Like, I don't want him to be playing as a right wing back. I like him as like part of the front three. I want him to be further up the field. But there were moments certainly early in the second half against Villarreal where Villarreal was starting to push Brighton back a little bit. And he got back and he was almost helping out at right back. And I love that tenacity. I like that way of working for the team.
I was seeing Feyenoord fans because obviously he was on loan to them last season. They actually said one of the biggest attributes of him is that he is like relentless. He will just hound you like constantly, just never goes away, which I think you see that kind of desire to win the ball back. Once he loses it, he's not going, oh God, he's wanting to win it back. And that is exactly the player you want. The thing that stuck out to me, I'll say it brief, but it's his playmaking. Like when you watch him back at Feyenoord, it's the playmaking ability that I think is there. He's looks unselfish, looks to get people involved in play, not just like an Anthony where he just relies on that left foot to cut in and shoot. He looks like he cuts in, then puts lofts a ball to the back post, or he can slide someone in, and that is where I think he could be a difference maker.
Well, that pass to Welbeck on Saturday was perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
A beautiful pass to Welbeck. As you can see, guys, the panel are very excited for Minter, so watch that space. Another one of our signings, Matt Swafer. Jamie, I know you really like him. What are your thoughts so far seeing him in the first couple of preseason games?
I think he against Villarreal alone, he absolutely controlled the game. He was alongside Milner, and I think we mentioned it in the last pod that they just controlled the game. They did, and Villarreal, great team, good pedigree, good midfielders in there, and I think they're a Europa League team, maybe even a Champions League team last season. So it's good competition, and we looked by far in control. And the thing I like most is we needed a centre mid, we got a centre mid, and he looks like someone that's just calm on the ball. Someone that, if someone presses him, he's not going to lose his head. He's going to do smart little flicks or going to be intelligent in terms of using his body to get out of situations. So that's the thing that's most promising with me, is that he looks unpressable, which is always good for a midfielder.
Yeah, what I liked about him was that we've obviously moved now to one in the holding role, unlike two under De Zerbi. At times, Milner came in and joined him and helped out, and at times the fullbacks were inverting and helping. But if they didn't and he was by himself, he was very comfortable. Nothing really fazed him. My slight concern initially was, is he going to be a player who's going to get it into his feet and then just play it back? And I've seen that as being a real development that Brighton have had since they've been in the Premier League. Like when they got promoted, they had the likes of Adele Stevens, who actually couldn't really turn, kept the ball very well, and he kind of lost his place in the side under Potter, certainly because he didn't have that ability to look over his shoulder, turn, and bring Brighton forward. And I was concerned at times, watching the first few minutes of the game against Villarreal, that maybe Weaver is just someone who quietly keeps hold of the ball. But he isn't. He will drop his shoulder. He will turn. He will take us forward. And that's what quite excited me about him on Saturday.
Yeah. Do you know, it always seems like he knows where the defender's coming from. And I think that came across well. Like, he always looks like that, that Xavi video where he's always scanning the pitch. I feel like that's what we get with Wiffer, is that he always looks like he knows where the defender's coming from. Just a little stat here for you. I love a little stat.
Here we go.
He was dispossessed, one of the fewest at centre mid or in midfield last season in his league by any midfielder. So there you go. That shows the composure he has on the ball.
And he's 6'2".
Yeah, that is. I know Bless loves a tall midfielder, so that is right up his street.
What, have we got Sanderberger's biggest fan here?
Yeah, no, we off camera we were talking about midfielders with long legs and how useful that is. I think
Who's your favourite long-legged midfielder?
There's a few. I used to love Matic. Matic was like the perfect mold for it. And Ndidi as well. Yeah.
Mark Vivian Foe, probably before your time, but he was epic in midfield for Man City back in the day.
Long
There
legs.
we go.
Big long legs. You'll enjoy that. That's a Google for you later, mate.
Bless his type. Don't get him aroused.
Right. Guys, we're going to take a short break, but we'll be back with you to talk about our departures.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Quite a few departures this season, guys. So Dennis Undav's left for £27 million. Is that one we're going to regret, Jamie?
I don't think we're going to regret it at all. I think that is brilliant value. I think we've recouped on our money very well there. I think it's safe to say, and I think a lot of people will agree, that he never took off in the Premier League. I think maybe it was a step too far. I think the Bundesliga is weaker. I hate to say it, sorry, Bundesliga fans, but I think it is weaker. I think that's why he shines there. And I think it's a good deal for both parties. I think Undav obviously scored a lot of goals there last season. He's going back to somewhere where the fans clearly take to him and like him. And we're getting very good money for a player that had no future at our club, I don't reckon.
Yeah, I wasn't really a fan. He played towards the end of the season before for Brighton, but that was a lot more to do with injuries than kind of anything else. I remember when Brighton got to the semi-finals of the FA Cup and lost on penalties to Man United, and Brighton had very much a bare 11 that day, outplayed United, but then just didn't quite have enough on the bench, and he was one of the players to come on, and he just really wasn't up to the level. And clearly he's improved and got better in the Bundesliga, but I can't see him getting in the side ahead of Welbeck, ahead of João Pedro, ahead of Evan Ferguson. I don't see it happening. So if we can get, what was it, 25, 28 million, however much it was, I think that's another great bit of business by Tony Bloom.
Do you know what annoyed me the most? Is that watching him for Stuttgart, where he scored 18 goals last season, I was thinking, where the hell was this for us? He couldn't hit a barn door for us. And then there he is, scoring 18 goals in the Bundesliga. Yeah, decent. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, it's weird. Some players just really struggle in the Premier League, and then they go somewhere else, they look completely different. And I think it's probably the case for him. And the money that's coming in, as Jamie, you've highlighted so well, that is really good money for him. But we'll move on to another player departing. Rich, I want you to take this one. Pascal Gross. What a man. What does he mean to Brighton Football Club?
Well, I don't think it would be good for us to do a minute silence on a podcast. I don't think it would be very exciting. But if we could, we should. Because what an absolute legend. You know, he joined us in that first season, and he was just an assist machine that year. I think everyone on their fantasy Premier League had him in their sides that year. He was getting so many assists. And, you know, throughout the years, his role changed within the club, and certainly under De Zerbi, I think he played every position in the side, from right back, left back, centre mid, forward, and he did get quite a rejuvenation under De Zerbi. And you know, we have called Jack Hinchelwood the young Pascal Gross and the future Pascal Gross. We'll see if that can happen, but. You know, what a player. Loved playing against Man United. Loved scoring against Man United, which we love to see. I was there at the end of the first season in the Premier League when he got us that crucial goal to stay back up in the Prem. So many great memories. And it says a lot about a player who leaves Brighton, and everyone is just disappointed that they're not able to say goodbye. So many messages of like, we need to have a game against Dortmund so he can say goodbye. Imagine that for some of the players we've lost over the last few years. That's not going to happen for the likes of Caicedo and Cucurella. It did kind of happen with McAllister when he came back with Liverpool. But it's players leaving in a certain way, and what a class act.
Yeah, I mean, 230 caps for Brighton. I mean, he will go down as... I daren't say it, but as our greatest ever player, maybe, or at least one.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Ooh.
maybe not, maybe an exaggeration, but a legend of Brighton. That's for sure. But he will be missed. I absolutely loved watching the composure on the ball. Just Rich said
It's the
everything we
Cruyff
need to.
turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was an absolute top player. But there is optimism. There is hope. He has said, apparently, after leaving Brighton, he apparently said he would love to return one day. So it might be a bit too late. He is 33, so we can only hold out hope.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan as well. What I particularly like, he just seems so intelligent, and I was a bit gutted and surprised that he didn't want to give it one more year under Hertzler, because I think his style, he could really benefit having a Pascal Gross
Mm,
in there. I'm surprised they didn't manage maybe just an extra year, but fair enough to the man. He wanted Dortmund, and he got
It's
it.
his boyhood club as well, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to give it to him.
So yeah, it does make sense. Our next player is one of my favourite players actually, and it's a bit of a surprise for many people when I say this, but
Ansu Fati.
I was about to say close, but nowhere near. Adam Lallana, the boy Adam Lallana. Jamie, what are your thoughts on Lallana leaving?
Can I say no thoughts on Lallana leaving? He's a good player, or he was a good player. It's probably time to go. It's probably time to pastures new, or whatever the saying is. I I don't think he was going to get into this team, and if he was going to get into this team, or if we ever did rely on him in the upcoming season, I think we might be in trouble. How old is he now? Like 34, 35?
Oh,
34,
he's
yeah.
older than that. I think 36
34.
maybe. Oh.
Jesus.
But he
Yeah.
brought a lot to the squad with his experience with Liverpool
Hmm.
and Southampton. But obviously, his success at Liverpool's what a lot of people remember. But he brought a lot into the back room, and he was
Yeah.
clearly learning a lot playing under De Zerbi. Learned a lot playing under Potter, and I think the idea was some kind of pathway of him becoming a coach. And you just feel he's been in and out the side because of injury, and maybe he just felt he had one more year in him. I thought he would have retired, but
Mm,
clearly he thought he had one more year. Brighton were like, "No, you haven't," and he's gone.
yeah.
Okay, I can get to Southampton. That's how I've read it or
Yeah.
seen it. I'm not quite so sure. He was a
But,
good servant, and he'll always be welcome back at the club, I think. But yeah, I think Southampton's a pretty wise move as well.
mm, I think that's a club he came from, isn't it, as well? So that makes sense for him. It's probably a club close to his heart. But I think in terms of what you were saying, Rich, I think the fact he was the ultimate player to have in and around the training ground, teaching the young players that we have. Is you need that experience. So that he was probably a big part in another player that's left, which is Buonanotte. He probably similar position, probably taught him a few things, and he's gone to Leicester now, which is another loss for the Seagulls, but only on a season-long loan with no option to buy. So it could be great experience, is what I think for him, especially if he gets regular minutes
And
for
we
Leicester.
still have Milner in the
Mm,
squad.
Yeah.
Milner
exactly.
will still bring that experience, and you know, we're obviously recording this a few hours before it goes live, but we might have Hummels over the line, a
Mhm.
35-year-old. So Brighton are smart. They know they want to get the young players who they can develop, bring through, and ultimately get a profit on. But they're also like, can we bring in some really experienced, wise heads to actually teach these younger players? And if we get Hummels through, if he isn't already through when we do this
Yeah.
podcast, that's great news.
Yeah. 100%.
Brilliant. A couple of other players who have headed out, so Buonanotte to Leicester, which Jamie's touched on. Just very quickly, do we think Leicester is the best place for him to sort of continue his football and education this season?
As I think I was, yeah, I was also going to say, I think it's good experience to play in the Prem. Like I'm glad he's gone to a Prem team so he can get that much needed experience to play in a Prem team. The question is, will he start? Will he play for Leicester? And I mean, they've lost Keenan Drewsbury Hall, so he could potentially fill that void or get some sort of regular minutes or that's the only positive. And then I think if he because it's no option to buy, I think because when he comes back, if he has done well, I think that's a perfect indicator that we've got something on our hands here. And if he doesn't, then we could cash in for a young player.
Yeah, not much more to add. I think it's a wise move, a smart move, and I think we've seen with other players that if it doesn't work, you can change it in January. Sarmiento played for 2 clubs last season. I like he's in the Prem, and I think there's a good player there. So yeah, excited.
Brilliant stuff. Right, we're going to take another short break and then we'll be back to just give an overview of what we think the window went like.
This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
Welcome back, guys. This time round, we're going to just give an overview of how we think the window went and where perhaps we need to fill in and go to next. So the first point I wanted to make is the wingers. I think with the new signings come in, a lot of them playing wide areas. Jamie, do you think that we've stacked up too many wingers now?
I think that is the problem that we've had with this track. I love Minter. Do I think Minter was a necessity? No. I think we've got so many wingers that it's like, could we have strengthened other places that are desperate need? Talking about centre back, talking about right back. I think those are positions where we are very weak. And wingers, it looks like we've got about 14 under 19s or under 20s that are just ready to take it. But I mean, nah, I think we should have strengthened in other places first.
Yeah, wingers we're fine at the moment. I agree with right back. I love Lamptey. I don't think Lamptey is the player he was when he first joined us, but I still think he's a good player. But from what I've seen so far pre-season, Hertzler hasn't given him many minutes. He's preferred Veltman. I like Veltman. I'm not sure Veltman should necessarily be a guaranteed starter every game. A great squad player, great servant, and definitely someone we want this season. But do we need someone else at right back? I know we're interested in this Ferdi Kajoglu from Fenerbahce. I've watched him play a few times for Turkey, but I've always seen him play at left back, and I don't think we need a left back. We've got Barco. Estepinian's injured, but should be back around October, November. He'll be a great return for us. So do we necessarily need a left back? I'm not sure.
Yeah, 100%. I think the right back situation is the position we need. And like you said, Kadioglu, I think he plays most of his games for Fenerbahce as left back. I think there is versatility there that they say that he can play right back as well. But the concern is right back. And I feel like if we start Veltman in 2024 to 2025 season at right back when he's 32 years old, maybe 31, then I'm worried. I'm worried.
Well, the thing which confuses me right now is like there was a lot of talk about St. Pauli played a back three. Brighton are interested in Hummels. Are they going to move to a back three? Is it going to be more of a back three? We've seen Belieber players like an inverted left back at times coming into midfield. Are they going to try and move and Veltman plays alongside? Is Hummels going to come in between Van Hecker and Dunk? That's kind of one thing that they can do to get around not getting a right back. Perhaps that's the plan. The other thing I'm not so sure about is when you look at the midfield of the game on Saturday, is Weaver looks locked in midfield. João Pedro's going to play behind almost with the other striker. And if it's not João Pedro, it could be Enciso. It's that third midfield position that I'm not sure what the medium-term future is, because I don't think it's Milner, and I don't know if it's a Yaukuye, if it's a Belieber, or if it's someone more attacking. Is it an Enciso alongside? They're all really good options, but are they the first choice options? And if not, are we going to go in the market for another midfielder?
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. And also, it's it's funny because I think we tend to forget Brighton's recruitment team is probably one of the best in the world. So like when new players come in, you haven't really heard of them. It's always tricky to sort of imagine what it's going to be like. But with that being said, how much of an impact do you think Hertzler had in sort of bringing these players in, Rich?
Oh, I wouldn't have thought very much in exact personnel. I think he might have outlined his formation and his vision and said, these are the areas I'd like to fix. He might have had a wish list, but I think most of the recruitment comes from Bloom, David Weir, Paul Barber. They've probably got a big list and a short list, and maybe Hertzler's looked at it, but I think it's much more the board than necessarily the coaching staff.
I think the ownership as well. I've probably scouted these players for a while. It feels like they're very brushed up, and we've seen in recent history in terms of the success we've had with the many wingers we've signed and the many good players that we signed that are just basically random before they come to us. And it's always a bit like, who are you? And then, but clearly they've worked out well, and it feels like the ownership know what they're doing, that you can have faith. That is the beautiful thing about supporting Brighton, is that you can have faith in when we sign these random youngsters that they might go on to do something. There was also talk that we're talking on your point earlier, Rich, that with another midfielder, there is talk of Matt O'Reilly from Celtic, which I think we do need another centre mid, and that would really excite me. I think he did an absolute class job at Celtic last season.
Not going to lie, not watched Scottish football probably this millennium.
That's fair enough.
Sorry, any Scottish fans?
There's our Brighton Scotland fans fuming now. Well, guys, thank you for listening. I've been Blessed Shabamba. I've been joined by Jamie and Rich. Thank you very much.
Signing out.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.